Hi, Simon.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm wonderful.
We'll just give it a few more minutes for everyone to hop in, but where are you coming from tonight?
I'm actually going. So, one of my best friends is doing an event all the way uptown. So, I am normally a jeans and t-shirt person. So, this is like 3 times a year I'm wearing this, and it just happens to be the day that I'm on Queen's Instagram.
That's wonderful. Well, I decided to dress up for you too, so glad we're on the same page with
Yeah, no,
dress
you
code
you
tonight.
look great. You look great.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, well, I'm really excited and pleased to welcome Simon Huck today, who's an art sci grad from 2006, to chat about his time at Queen's, his extraordinary journey from being a Queen's Gael to being in New York City, where he was able to break down barriers on his way to become the president of Command Entertainment. My name is Nikki, for those of you who don't know. I'm a recent alumni from the fine art program, and I'm going to be hosting Simon tonight. So it's great to see you again, and thank you for joining us from New York City. Maybe one day we can get you back on campus in Kingston. I've been able to interview a lot of students on campus, even our Prime Minister Justin Trudeau. But you are my first alumni, and I think I'll just have to retire tonight because I can't imagine it getting better than this. So thank you for being here with us tonight.
Nikki, you're so kind. I'm so excited. I have not been back to Kingston since I like the day that I graduated, which
Wow.
is crazy because I loved my time in Kingston. I didn't know that I was going to, but I fell in love with the city, and the 3 years I spent there were three of my
Yeah.
favorite. I still have the best
Yeah.
memories.
Yeah, I do too. I'm on my fifth year and not quite ready to leave yet. So I'd love to get to know your about your time at Queen's. So you were an art sci. What were you studying, and what was 19-year-old Simon like as a student?
Oh my gosh. I was kind of all over the place. I started out in art sci, and I was very much determined to go to law school. So that was kind of my talk track. I would tell anyone that would listen, I'm like, I'm doing my political science honors degree, and then I'm going to go to law school. And I don't even know where I came up with that. Like, did I watch a show in high school? Like, I just remember the first year that was the plan. And it was such a kind of a wild experience moving to Kingston and being independent for the first time. I think everyone who goes to any school away from home, you suddenly are thrown into life so fast and furious. And my residence was, this is crazy. I had to Google this. It was Gordon Rock, but like
Yeah,
I think we called it something different. Like, what do people
Gord
call it?
Rock.
Yeah, maybe that's what, yes.
That's
So I
really
was on the
cool.
first floor, and the residence for me was the time of my life.
Yeah, yeah. How did you spend your residence days? Were you did you hang out with your floor a lot?
Oh, we were all best friends. So I had kind of a smaller floor, the first floor of Brock. Like there was probably 8 or 9 rooms. It wasn't huge. And then like the lower level, which I think we called it the labyrinth, which is like the bottom level. And then kind of on floor two, we hung out with some of those people, but we all became the best of friends. I had requested like a private bathroom. I don't know why, but I just remember I did. And so I was put on kind of like the varsity football area of like all the athletes who had come early to start practice or whatever were kind of all in my wing, which was intimidating. Like I was like, am I going to get along with? We became inseparable within a matter of weeks.
That's awesome. That's incredible. I had a very similar residence experience. I made some of my best friends there. And to your point about law school, I think that it's really truly just a canon event for Queen students. I decided to start a law certificate during COVID, and I definitely thought I was going to be a lawyer for a few months there. But realized that's a certificate in law is not like going to law school.
Right, right.
Yeah. I'd love to know how else did you spend your time at Queen's beyond first year in residence? Were you involved in any clubs or campus jobs, or were you purely, in the library?
Nikki, I wish I could say that I was involved in clubs. I was not, but I was very active on campus. I did a lot of extracurricular social activities. So you could find me at the Elixir on Wednesday nights.
I don't even know what
Okay.
that is.
Oh, Nikki, you're missing out. It was a club that was like Wednesday night. It had like the night. And then on Friday, we went to Stages. Is Stages still around?
It is. It is. It's like kind of like a Thursday night situation,
Okay.
stage rage.
Okay. And then I would hang out at the library. Like, library for me was half social, half studying. And at the time, it was like relatively new. I'm not sure what year it was built, but it was just beautiful. And it was like the perfect hybrid of a little bit of socializing, which honestly now, given what I do in my career, the socializing was really part of my studies.
Yeah, exactly. You were just preparing for your
I
career.
prep work,
Yeah,
full prep.
exactly. Exactly. Um, well, that's awesome to hear that you had such a great social life in university. I also heard about how, back in the early 2000s, you were one of few or maybe the only openly gay student at Queen's in a time where there wasn't, a large visible community. So I'm wondering how that experience was for you and how that kind of shaped who you are, but had an
Well,
effect on you.
yeah, it says so much about Queens and the community that's fostered there. I grew up in Ottawa, and the school that I went to was a school called Canterbury, which was an art school. But the school that was in my area was a school where, when I was younger, I felt like some of the kids weren't as accepting. And this is, so many years ago. So going into Queens, I was really nervous. I thought, wait, this is going to be thousands of kids. Like, am I going to face what I faced when I was a little bit younger? And I can tell you, and I'm so proud of this, and I'm just proud of like what Queen stands for. There was not a minute on campus that I didn't feel celebrated, loved. I never felt in any room, in any environment, that I was anything but completely celebrated for who I was. And there wasn't, I don't think, like an LGBT club at the time. Maybe there was, and I just wasn't a part of it, or I didn't know about it, but there wasn't a lot of visible kind of LGBTQ communities on campus. And it didn't matter. I still felt so loved, more so than in cities in the United States. Like, it
Yeah.
truly was a campus that fostered inclusivity before that was like a buzzword
Yeah.
around
Yeah.
every
I'm
organization.
really happy to hear that, and I feel like it's also a testament, like, just even having this is our second conversation, like, you really make everyone feel important and seen, and you've got such a great energy. So I'm
So
not
sweet, Nikki.
surprised at
Thank
all
you.
that you were treated so well. Yeah, no, I will say, like, it's really wonderful to see the visible groups that have are able to support our queer students on campus. And we have the Yellow House, and just last year we were able to put on through the AMS and some other groups on campus, the first big one since COVID, queer prom. So Grant Hall, where you might have graduated
Yeah.
from, was full of drag talent and celebrations, and seeing the photos and hearing about it afterwards was truly amazing. So I know that you would have been ripping up that dance floor if there was a queer prom when
100%.
you were there.
I got to come back. 100%.
Yeah, you do. You do. Well, maybe this year you can come back.
Would love to.
Yeah, so clearly you loved your time at Queen's. As you were getting ready to leave, how were you feeling, and where was your mind at in those, uncertain times as you were getting ready
Yeah.
to leave?
It was such a weird time. And I think it happens to everyone around the time they're graduating. They're either not sure what they want to do, so they're figuring out, do I go back to school and do another degree? Do I do my master's? For me, I knew, like, after year one, I was like, I'm not meant to be a lawyer. Like, that's not how I'm hardwired. And I had a lot of friends who were a little bit older than me, but who lived in Toronto, and would say things like, you should go into communications, you should go into PR. And I didn't really understand what that meant. I didn't really understand the industry. I thought, oh, it's PR event planning. And I was working at a clothing store. It was on Princess Street by Tim Hortons. Like it was between like I think the Tim Hortons is still there. Maybe it's not.
There's a Tim Hortons on Princess, yeah.
Okay. So I like 5 stores up. There was a store called Shad, and I was working there part time. And I had a subscription to Us Weekly, which is a tabloid that I still read every week. And in that magazine, there was an article about a woman named Lizzie Grubman, and it called her a publicity princess. And I remember reading the story and thinking, this is insane. What is this industry? I didn't fully understand it, but I knew that I was intrigued enough to pick up the phone every single day for 14 days until someone said, if you happen to be in New York, we'll take an interview with you, but this is for an internship and we don't pay. And it was at
Perfect.
that very minute that my life changed forever as I embarked on this journey of going to New York, seeing if I could get this job, and then eventually landing the job.
Yeah, yeah. And I want to dig into that kind of path and the journey into New York. I'm curious because you said you didn't really have an idea of what PR really meant. Are you glad that you didn't really know what it really entailed? Like, do you think you would have been more hesitant?
It's such a good question. Like, yes, I'm actually, now that you bring it up, yes, thank God I didn't know, because I grew up in Ottawa. I was so intimidated by New York. Talk about imposter syndrome. You go to a city that's the biggest in the world. It's the most metropolitan. I was working for someone who was kind of in the middle of just entertainment and nightlife and special events. So I'm glad I didn't really know all of that, because I would have never had the tenacity to pick up the phone. And as I was thinking about this talk, and maybe I'm getting ahead of myself, Nikki, so stop me, but one of the reasons why I was able to pick up that phone and call Lizzie's office and say, I want to try for this, is that when I went to Queens, the first week I was in residence, I met so many people. And I remember one person came up to me and said, oh, I'm going to start a tech company when I graduate. And another girl said, oh, well, I actually already started a fashion line, and I'm going to launch a whole fashion line when I'm done with school. And I thought, oh my God, like these people are dreaming bigger than I even thought was possible, and are talking about their dreams and aspirations in a way that I never really thought I could even reach for. Like I didn't think that was even something available to me. Everyone in Ottawa that I knew worked for the government,
Yeah.
and they worked for big corporations. And startup culture wasn't startup culture back then. So it just didn't even occur to me. And being around such inspirational people who know what they want, it's part of the magic of Queens and part of the reason why I'm here today, 20 something years later, still in the field.
Yeah.
I mean, at least in the field adjacent.
Yeah. And I'm so glad we have you here today, like to show, current students and alumni, young alumni, that there's so many different career options out there. I'm sure that there might be people listening who didn't even realize this was an option for them. So you mentioned, so you call Lizzie and you're like, if she says, if you happen to be in there, we can chat. How old were you? What, 21, 22, something like that?
So I was 21, and I had been to New York once before and stayed in Times Square for like a day.
Yeah. So how did you convince your family that this was a good idea?
So I was untruthful, which I know is against the value code at Queens, but I told my parents that it was a job interview, which it was not a job interview. The person who picked up the phone, who I didn't know at the time, was the CFO of the business, and said, if you stop calling, like I'll agree to a job interview, but it's not a job interview. You can come in and see what this is all about, but we're not hiring. We have no plans on hiring, and we would only hire people with a minimum of 5 years experience. So the minute he said that to me, I called my parents and I said, I got a job interview. It's a really big opportunity. And then I think it was literally 3 days later, I booked a ticket. There was a Queens graduate named Amanda who I was close friends with. She was studying, she was doing her master's at NYU. So I stayed on her sofa, And I called the person, his name was Brian, and I said, I'm in New York. He didn't even know, he didn't even remember the conversation that had happened 3 days later, and said, oh, you're here? Okay, well, you can stop in around 12 o'clock. So I go into the office at 12 o'clock. It is, at this time, this Lizzie Grubman, who was the woman I was interviewing with, she had a show on MTV called Power Girls. And this is the very beginning of reality TV. So it was not what we see now where there's thousands of shows. So having a show was a really big deal. And MTV, which is now kind of a defunct network, was the network. So Lizzie was, in my opinion, famous. I was intimidated to even be in the office with her. And so when I arrived, no one was waiting to greet me. No one even knew I had an interview. The person, Brian, who I was supposed to meet with, wasn't even there. And so her then business partner, this guy named Jonathan Shevin, agreed to take the meeting with me. I don't even know what he asked. I remember blacking out in the interview. He was asking me why I wanted the job. I didn't really know anything about their clients or their company. The one thing I did have was just unlimited enthusiasm. I was like an air traffic controller. Like my hands were flying. I was so excited to be in New York, and I was so excited to be in the office. And I remember leaving the interview thinking like, I don't know if that went well. Like I didn't have a good understanding of what they did. And 3 hours later, I got a phone call from Lizzie's then assistant and said, this isn't a job offer, but if you happen to be in New York and you do move here, you can come and get our lunch and get coffee for us twice a week. So then white lie / full on fib number 2 was I told my parents I had a full job.
Yeah.
And I said, it's for the first 4 weeks, they don't pay, but it's going to turn into something. And less than a week later, I moved my entire life to New York City, moved in with a friend who was living and studying in the city, a different friend than the first. And that began my journey.
Wow. Wow. That's incredible. Not saying anyone else should follow exactly like that, but it obviously worked out for you. And when you're so young, you can take those risks, which is so incredible. And I'm so glad it worked out for you. I've been listening, I'm not going to lie, I've been listening to a lot of podcasts that you've been on, and you've been on quite a lot. But it works out because I do consume a lot of podcasts each day. And I heard you talk about on a recent one about how like it was not a perfect trajectory for you at all. And how you got the job because you were so enthusiastic. Like clearly they probably couldn't like shut you up. You were just there and ready and willing to work. And so how did it transpire afterwards? Like how did you make an impact and show them like you're more than just an air traffic controller?
Right. So and I remember thinking about it, like my whole thesis was if I can just understand how to be good at PR and understand what was the unlock, like what was the gatekeep to really understanding the profession. And I was willing to start earlier and to go later. I was willing to do the jobs in the office in the beginning that no one wanted. And then I was willing to shadow people and find mentors within, at the time it was Lizzie's office, but constantly just soak up as much information as possible. And so the first 2-3 years living in New York, I mean, I was certainly not thriving. In retrospect, you look back and you think, oh, it wasn't that bad. But at the time, I had zero financial security. I was kind of living hand to mouth. I was kind of surfing from sofa to sofa. I would stay at one friend, and then that wouldn't work out, and I would stay at another friend, and then I would stay in some scary places in New York that I didn't really want to stay in. And the whole time I kept saying, well, if I can just last another week, or if I can just last another 2 weeks, hopefully they'll offer me like a full paying job. And I don't think I fully felt that sense of security. And I had a lot of people in my life, certainly my parents and my other friends who had gone on to finance careers, and they kept saying like, hey, like the gig is up. Like you have got to come home. Like these people aren't paying you. And it's really, they're taking advantage and I didn't feel they were. I had realized that this was such a lucrative industry to work in. New York and work in entertainment and work with celebrities and work at this level at such a young age. Like I wasn't gonna, there was 20 other people waiting to fill my spot. And so I knew I had to persevere and I had to have that grit. Even though, as I say it now, it sounds like, oh my God, I did it. I was not happy. Like there were very low days. There were days when I would call my parents or my best friends with like tears in my eyes saying like, ugh, like I kind of want to just give up. Like this is not working. All the signs are telling me to stop. And I didn't. And I got to a point where I got over that hurdle and things
Yeah, when
started
was that
seeing.
turning point for you, would you say? I'm sure you've had a lot of different turning points in your career, but
So Lizzie had a relationship with this person named Jonathan. And when their business kind of ruptured and they went their separate ways, it was after a year and a half, 2 years of me working in New York. When that happened, I immediately went from kind of low hanging intern to almost like a chief of staff role. Because we went from this business of 20 to a business of two, because we were no longer attached to this. So that was really a game changer. And I started to just assume more and more responsibility. And it just, I don't remember the year that I was like, wait a minute, I'm suddenly like in charge of this. But what I can tell you was I moved in 2006. 2005 was my interview. 2006, I moved. By 2009, I was his business partner. By 2011, I acquired the business. So
that's pretty incredible.
once I got it, like the first years were murky, but once I figured out the business and understood what my superpower was, and I'll say this now because I listen to a ton of podcasts and I hear about people's kind of trajectory. And the biggest blessing I ever had in life, I've had a lot of really good luck, was that I stumbled upon a career that I was meant to do. And I just turned 40. I have a lot of my best friends who are 35, 36, 42, who weren't so lucky to stumble on a career. They went finance or they went into design and they hated it and they switched careers. And so now at 35 or at 40, they're finding their stride. I was very lucky to fall into a career by truly by mere accident of feeling an instinct and going with it that I was really good at and that harnessed like what my superpower was.
Yeah, and I think that's so nice to acknowledge, especially as someone who's 23 years old and trying to figure out my future, that we kind of like in the age of social media and like LinkedIn, and you see like every day someone's got like the coolest job announcement ever, and it looks like it's happened overnight. And it's good to know that like a lot of it is luck, but to your credit, like you didn't you took it, you held on to that luck, and then you put in the work, and that's why you were able to get where you are. And so it's good to know that if we don't all have it figured out right now, hopefully the second or third time we will figure it out.
Oh, yeah. And even once I figured it out, I then wanted to go and launch other businesses that I had never done before. And then I think it's constantly just iterating but it's not, as I grew up, I never thought that was the case. I had kind of had parents who stayed in one lane their entire careers and they were happy in that lane, but I didn't know, and I think the world has changed so much, but I didn't realize that you could pivot so many times. And thank God for that.
Yeah. Yeah, thank God for that. Do you think that your experiences from, coming from Queens to, fighting for that job, has that impacted how you maybe act as a mentor? I'm assuming you have acted as a mentor to many people and to those younger students trying to make it in the world.
It has, and it has been like probably the most rewarding thing in my life is finding younger kind of founders, entrepreneurs, would-be entrepreneurs, or people who are about to graduate and just studied something for 4 years and they have this moment where they're like, I absolutely hate what I just studied and can't imagine making a career out of it. One of my good friends is an interior designer and she was in law school and she did 7 years of school for it, and she did a year at a law firm and then said, wait a minute, I want to be an interior designer. So like that entire 7 years was kind of washed away. So mentoring people and encouraging them to take the risks and to really just like narrow in on the voice and the instinct of what do I actually want to do. I remember second or third year when people started talking to me about communications, like I had a lot of friends who said, oh, well, there's no real like financial future there for you. That's a really kind of niche industry. And I don't think that you can be financially successful. And I think in college, at least back when I was at Queen's, people talked a lot about income and what their salary could look like fresh out of school. And that was like a topic of conversation I remember a lot in my second and third year. And I'm so happy that I didn't listen to those. I was almost like belligerent. I was like, no, I'm just going to follow what I want. And I now know that in whatever you do, if you are successful and you are good at it, like the financial security comes. Like it follows success wherever it goes, regardless of the field.
Yeah. What a great piece of advice. Because yeah, that is it's a lot of talk in your fourth year, fifth year at Queen's. It's hard to like tune that out, but it is important.
I remember being depressed about it because everyone had, and also Queen's attracts like these are some of the smartest kids in the country. And so they're type A, a lot of them, and they know what they want, which is incredible and inspiring to be around. But at the same time, also could make you feel like, oh my God, what the hell is going on? Like, I don't even know what I want to do, let alone my financial future.
Yeah. Oh, I can relate as a fine arts student.
Yeah. Oh my,
I can relate. Lots of questions about what are you going to do with that?
Right.
I'll figure it out.
You're going to figure it out.
Yeah. Okay, I'm going to ask you about the challenges, but I also just first want to, hear about like what are you doing right now? Like,
sure.
What do you like love about your job? Like, what gets you up in the morning? I also want to hear about like what was this whole reality television experience? Like, how did you get into that?
What did I do?
Reality?
Yeah. Okay, so I'll go with what I currently do now. The business that I've had for since 2011 that has been kind of my career has been helping big brands and small brands, but work with celebrities and now influencers. So I am almost the middle person between connecting a big brand with talent. So when you're watching a Super Bowl commercial and you see someone talking about shampoo and it's a celebrity, I am the person in between that, negotiating that deal. And so that business has grown and we've had for a very long time. That represents probably 20% of my day. My full time now is I have founded a business called Lemmy, which our founder is Kourtney Kardashian, who's a longtime friend and someone that I've worked with over the years. And the business launched 13 months ago, and it is a vitamin and capsule business, a multi-generational vitamin and capsule business that I spend all of my time on, and I'm a co-CEO on.
I see your
and it's been
story posts about that.
Yeah,
always promoting it. I still need to get my hands on them.
I'm full-time Lemmy, and it's been amazing. And then I have another startup called Judy, which is an emergency preparedness brand that I launched in January of 2020, and I also have a co-founder in that business as well. And that helps families around the world prepare for emergencies. We sell kind of these hyper stylized, organized emergency kits with 50 or 60 different emergency items to prepare yourself for the unexpected. So that's Judy. And then my husband has a brand called Sniff, which is a D2C fragrance and candle business, which I am involved in terms of like helping run their kind of celebrity influencer strategy. So it sounds like a lot, but it all kind of sits in the same.
How do you manage all of those buckets? Like, obviously you're so invested and like love everything you're doing, but like on a day-to-day, like how do you not just like crash and burn? Like, what do you do? What's the secret?
So the secret is it's everyone else that's incredible. I have an incredible business partner who's at Command, who's been with me for 14 years, 13 years. And I have an incredible co-founder at Judy. And so you build up these incredible teams, and that allows me to focus again on like, what am I really, really good at, and where is the value that I can add to any of these businesses? No one wants me in operations. No one. Don't invite me to that group chat. Take me up. I know where I live, and that's in brand and marketing and celebrity, and that's where I'm gonna live. And I think the people that do the best in their careers are really good at finding people that fill in their gaps, and people who struggle oftentimes can't find those people or can't build that team around them. So it's not me. It's literally everyone else.
Yeah. Did you ever struggle in the beginning, like giving up some of some of the responsibilities? Was it easy for you?
Yeah, I mean, in startup land, you become really precious and you start worrying about font and like the color of the package that's like too color, and then you like have perspective and you're like, I cannot believe I gave up my Saturday to talk about the font. Like
Yeah.
you, perspective is always really important, and again, it's like the people that are around you. And sometimes like Phil, my husband, is like the best perspective, where he's like, why are you not sleeping over an email you sent 6 weeks ago? Like you kind of need to be woken up sometimes to what really matters.
Yeah. 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 Okay, I'm curious. Like, what do you do for fun? Do you have any hobbies? Like, what do your weekends and your evenings look like?
Okay, yeah, no, I definitely have a lot of fun. I never want to be the person who's like, I work 24/7. No, 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 no. Like I live for fun, and Phil and I spend a lot of our time in Montauk, which is like a little surfing community at the very end of Long Island. So we spend most weekends out there, and we entertain constantly in our home. It's something I picked up from my mom, who was a home entertainer, constantly throwing parties and dinners, and so we love doing that. What else? We love to travel. I think that we probably will have kids in the next couple of years. So before we do that, we're trying to squeeze in every last trip we can do. And we just got married 2 years ago. So I guess we're still in the honeymoon phase, at least of
Yeah,
marriage.
yeah,
Yeah. We haven't turned on each other
yeah.
yet.
That's awesome. Well, I used to be a nanny. I took a year off, and so if you ever need a babysitter, you just call
Okay.
me up and I'll be there.
No, we will. We
Yeah.
will.
I'll tell my parents I have this job lined up in New York City. Yeah,
Perfect.
yeah,
Yeah, an unpaid
yeah.
internship.
Just changing diapers.
So good.
Um, okay, I want to kind of tie some things together before we get into some like rapid fire questions. With all of your incredible experiences and accomplishments, I'm sure you've been able to make some connections back to your time at Queens. And um, if you could go back to your underground, what do you wish you did more of, less of? What would you tell your younger self as you were, getting ready to cross the stage to graduate? This is kind of a selfish question because this is me right now. So
Right.
I'm really curious your thoughts are on that.
What would I tell myself at Queens, or what would I tell myself when I left Queens?
As you were leaving, well, actually at Queens, like what do you wish you did more of or less of when you were a student? And then I guess what advice would you give yourself as you were getting ready to leave?
I have no regrets at Queens. I wouldn't tell myself. I loved every single minute of it. And I see on this chat, I have some of my Queens friends, my friend Nora and Ainsley and Jules, which
Aw.
I like. I love them, and I haven't. It's just so nice to like think of those memories, because they were some of my fondest memories. And there is no way that I could be where I am today without the foundational blocks that Kingston and Queens gave to me. So I don't have any advice for the Simon at Queens, because I really think I did
You
it.
made
I really
the
lived.
most of it.
Oh, no, 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 no. I lived.
Yeah, yeah.
I lived.
Well, I'm also really glad to hear that you still talk to your friends from Queens. That makes me really happy. I'm hoping I'll be able to stay in touch with all my
Yeah,
friends.
one of my friends, Melissa, who was a Queens grad, she was a year above me. I was her maid of honor in her first wedding, and I just spent the weekend with her. Yeah, no. So back to your question, what I would say to Simon, like post college, was be be a little bit more, like lean into the risk a little bit more. Once I understood PR, I spent a lot of time just growing the business, but I didn't get into startup land and I didn't take additional risks in my career. I felt like I was really good and just kind of sat there for a little bit. And I didn't start my first business, my consumer business, until 4 years ago. And so there was a lot of time where I was kind of comfortable.
Mhm.
And I regret that because I think in a career, it's always nice to keep pushing yourself and finding yourself in those like uncomfortable, like, what am I doing phase? Like, which is where the magic happens, which is where the magic happened when I picked up that phone. And the thing I always say to myself is like, where was that crazy 20-year-old who picked up the phone and called Lizzie's office when he had like $17 in his Scotiabank account? Like, I had like no business moving to New York, and like where is that like courage that I had back then? Like, because I have often lost it in the last 15 years, and I have to like push it to get it back.
Yeah, yeah, that's wonderful. We all just need to try to be 20-year-old
Yeah,
Simon with
yeah. I
$17
mean,
in
I
his
don't know
account.
what came over me, but yes, yes.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, I know you have an event to head off to, so just to kind of conclude things, I have a list of some more rapid fire questions. I know both of us could talk for a while, so we'll see if these actually are rapid. But okay, my first question is, if you had to switch careers right now, what industry would you jump into?
What
Would you be
industry
a lawyer?
would I be a lawyer? What would I do? Okay, this sounds like this feels connected, but it's actually not. I think if I switched careers right now, I would actually, instead of representing brands, I think I would be really, really good at representing talent and
Mm,
doing talent management. I know it feels like it's the same,
yeah,
but it's not. But
yes.
it's a lot more stressful managing some of these crazies. But I think I would be really good at it, and I'd like to try
Yeah.
it.
Oh, I'm sure you could manage the heck out of them.
Thank you.
Okay. I'm curious, what's a recent favorite show, movie, book, podcast? What would you recommend to us to check out right now?
I'm going to suggest the Skinny Confidential because I think that Lauren and Michael do such a good job of having actionable tips for
Yeah.
people who are going into business. Like, they really know how to synthesize info. And I just did their podcast and it comes out next week. So I love to shamelessly plug it. Shows. What shows? Oh,
Podcast is
gosh. I watch.
enough. That's good. Yeah,
Okay.
I just needed
Okay.
one. Yeah, that's good. Okay. What's the best and worst part about being or having had been on TV or in the spotlight still?
So we never even talked about the show. The show was great and it was a cool experience. It was not an experience that I was like looking to do, but it was an experience my then business partner Jonathan was really interested in. And our executive producer was Kim Kardashian and she was the co-creator of the show and she kind of loved the idea of like showing the world what goes on at these PR firms and all the behind the scenes magic. Um, I'll say that like when you give up your privacy, you you suddenly like, especially nowadays with TikTok and just like the way that there's so much vitriol online, like you do suddenly subject yourself, especially if you're sensitive like me, to unnecessary criticism that probably isn't helping you. So kudos to the people who can do it and be
Yeah.
professional influencers and throw themselves in the spotlight, but it's not something that I look to. I would say that I'm always going to be spotlight adjacent, where I'm
Yeah.
happy to be.
Yeah. So what was the best part? Meeting people?
Yeah, the best part is that it opens up doors very quickly. So you're able to meet a lot of great people that you would have otherwise never met. Maybe it helps you get a dinner reservation.
Yeah. I'm sure you have no
Yeah,
problem getting a dinner
yeah,
reservation now.
yeah. No, I do
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. Okay, so happy belated
Thank
birthday,
you.
first of all. So I'm guessing you had a pretty epic birthday party. As you said, you thought PR was kind of like party planning situation. What is like your ideal or typical birthday celebration you have year to year?
I honestly don't do anything too crazy. Even if my husband was here, he would like throw the phone at me by saying that because he thinks what I just did this weekend was insane. So I'll just like this weekend was my 40th, and I did 100 people on Friday at our apartment, which was very squished. And then I did like 150 people at a bar on Saturday. Is that crazy? Maybe that's too much.
Were they different people, a different 100 than?
There was some overlap.
Yeah,
There was some overlap.
yeah. So some people got the double
Some
invite.
people got the double. Some people, actually, everyone was invited to both, but some people were like, I can't give you 2 nights
Yeah,
for your
yeah.
birthday.
Well, I guess we know who your real friends are.
Oh my God. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you for the birthday
Just
messages I see in the comments.
oh, sweet. Also, I did see a message earlier about someone who said they were in Gord Brock in the year 2000, I think. So there's some Gord Brock
Oh,
representation.
amazing.
Yeah.
I hope we knew each other.
Yeah. Okay, I've never been to New York City. It's somewhere I've always wanted to go. I would love to go around the holidays. Winter is my favorite season. I love Christmas, all of that. So like if I were to be able to get there sometime soon, what would you recommend me going to do?
You have to see the tree, even though I think you can see it for like 5 minutes and just get it out of the way. I think you have to walk around the West Village, which is charming and beautiful, and cobblestone streets. And there's so many cute shops. I think you have to go to Brooklyn,
Yeah.
just because it's beautiful and it's different, and there's like a whole vibe there that you don't get in the city. You have to shop. You have to do a power shop.
Yeah. 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 Awesome. Well, I'm gonna write all those down. Check those off my list. Okay, two more questions. One is New York City Marathon was this past weekend. What were you doing during the New York City Marathon?
Oh, I was in bed. I
Yeah.
was in bed with Pedialyte and like ordering like French fries.
Yeah.
This was post birthday. I was completely horizontal all day.
Wonderful.
Oh, go to Canal Street. Canal Street's fun too. Someone just
Awesome.
yeah, Canal's a good suggestion.
Perfect. Okay, final question. If you were to go back to Queens for one day right now, what would you do on campus? Where would you go in Kingston? How would you spend that day?
This is a hot take, but I kind of loved the cafeteria. Like I always loved is that weird?
Shout out Queens food.
Yeah, like I remember people had very strong opinions about it, and I always liked it. I was like a dessert guy, so I would just go right to the desserts. I remember they had tiramisu and Jello every day, which is
They do have good desserts.
They have good desserts, and like at the time, maybe there was like an ice cream bar. I think there was with toppings.
Yeah, yeah.
I kind of went to town on it. So I would do that, and then I would go back to Brock. I'd want to see like my old room because it was like such an incredible experience. And then I would is Gusto still around? That restaurant Gusto?
I've never heard of Gusto.
Oh my God. Okay, well,
I can
maybe I would just go to
the recommendations.
Yeah,
and
Nikki, I would join you and I'd go to Stages on a Thursday.
Perfect. Stage Rage. We'll go.
Yeah. Oh my God, the waffle machine. I remember the waffle machine. Do you guys still have the waffle machine?
Yeah.
Okay.
They couldn't get rid of that. I'm sure it's the same one you used in 2005.
For sure. Gusto.
Oh, Gusto's
still around. Okay,
around.
So Gusto's still
I
around.
need to check it out.
Oh no, Gusto's closed. Sad. Oh, Le Petit. Oh my, I could get lost in these comments forever.
Me too.
The Cocoa
Mobile.
Oh, these are all such good references.
Well, Simon, this has been a really, really fantastic conversation. I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day, especially, I mean, I guess this isn't really work, but
yeah,
it's your evening. So I appreciate that, especially with your busy schedule. I'm glad you recovered from your 40th and you were able to make it tonight. And yeah, Queens community, thank you for joining us. This was the first Gaels of the Last Decade Gold Speaker of the Year, brought to you by the Young Alumni Unit at Queens. You can keep in touch with the alumni account and see when the next one's going to be hosted in the winter. And hopefully you all feel a little bit more inspired to follow your dreams like Simon. You at least got some really good recommendations for places to go in New York City and Kingston. Again, thank you, Simon. We really appreciate you taking the time.
Thank you so
and
much,
hopefully
Nikki.
we see you in Kingston someday. Definitely reach out and let me know.
Also, Nikki, I feel like you could be like an e-correspondent. You're such a natural.
This is like I didn't plan on going down this way. This is just a fun little thing I do at Queens, but
But
I don't know if I have a
if
career in it.
it could be a side hustle for you, just saying.
Maybe if you ever need a correspondent, you let me know and
You're
I'll
my
do it for
girl.
you.
Okay.
Yeah.
Deal.
Yeah. Okay, well have a
Amazing.
wonderful night.
Thanks so much.
Bye everyone.